Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Flip It training. I see that a lot of you are signed on, but I was still waiting for a few more. So as we're just going to give everybody just another minute or two, that's it, because we have a long training and I don't want anybody to miss anything. I'd love to know how you guys are feeling now. So it says in your question box, go ahead and just tell me how you're feeling. 1 or 2 words. And then this way I can get a feel for how you're doing right now.
Okay, hey Deb, you ready to hear some feelings of everybody?
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks.
Okay, so we're having a good, someone wrote tired, but we have an excited, I'm good, very good, thank you. Oh, someone wrote, I'm good, thank you, how are you? So how are you, Deb?
How am I? I'm good. I feel the same way as you. I feel excited. I feel a little anxious because for the first time I'm going to put on my webcam. Haven't done that before. So yeah, no, I'm super excited because I love this training. And I'm so glad that we're going to be a small group today. So that's also new for us. So I'm really excited to see how this works out. Thank you for asking. Okay, let's see. We have about 40 people registered. We have about 29 people on now, but I think we're going to go ahead and start. So I give anybody that just came on a few minutes ago, I just asked you to write your feelings to see how you're doing now. And also while you're writing in the chat or the question box, I'm also just curious, like where you are right now. Are you in a classroom? Because we are going to try to make this interactive, and I just wanted to see and get a feel for, where you're tuning in from. Are you at home or are you like a private location? I'm just curious if you're in a classroom or not. Maybe it's nap time, that kind of thing. Allison, so when you know, just let me know.
We have a few in a classroom.
Okay.
Someone wrote, I'm home.
Okay, so it looks like we have both.
Yeah, I'm in a classroom.
Right, because we were thinking, we are going to want to make this series interactive, and I was thinking if you're in a classroom, is that realistic for you? Just something for us to think about from our standpoint.
Right, we have another one, I'm at work. But yeah, it's definitely something we want to think about as we move into the next phase of this fabulous Flip It training.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and start. And I know you're probably all really curious about what Flip It is, so you will find out very shortly. Okay. So, oh, I said I'm going to put my webcam on, right? All right. Let's see if I can do this. Share my webcam. Okay. Can you see me? Oh, there I am. All righty. Let me see if I can do this on this side. All right. Are you guys seeing me?
Wow, I don't see. Oh, there you are. Yay, with beautiful flowers in the background.
Okay, well, you can see my chair, my fold-up chair in the back too. Don't look over there. Okay. Oops. Am I still there or I'm not?
You're there. You're there.
Okay. So I thought I would first start by just introducing myself. For those of you that are new to some of our trainings or I haven't met yet, my name is Debbie Kay, and I have my bachelor's degree in special education with my master's in education. And I've been in early childhood or early childhood / special ed for like 40 plus years. And I have to say that I still love it. I still adore it. I just can't picture myself doing anything else. In fact, I took a year off at one point thinking, I can, explore something in medicine or different things I was interested in. And like went right back to early childhood. So I am here and I'm staying. I'm married with 3 children and 4 delicious grandchildren. And all of them are infants and toddlers. And I feel so lucky because with everything that we learn as we continue our professional development, I get to practice on them. And I have to say, these strategies really work, and that really makes it even that much more fun. And currently, I am a manager in the inclusion department in the department or program in the education department at the Early Learning Coalition. But I do like to just share a little of my experience, just that you know where I'm coming from. I was a preschool teacher. I was a preschool director. I taught special education. I was an exceptional student education specialist in both the public school and the private sector at NSU, at the Bowdoin Preschool. And I've worked in lots of different programs with different initiatives, all connected to early childhood, working with families, working with teachers, working with children. So I'd like for you to know that, so you know that I really try hard to be able to connect, with the audience. And I'm here with Allison Metz. She's the director of the education program at the ELC, and she's going to be manning the chats. Thank you so much, Allison. And then I'm also here with my 6 inclusion specialists. So the inclusion team at the Early Learning Coalition has 6 inclusion specialists, and they will be presenting parts of this training as we go forward. So I'm going to just mention their first names because you may know them, because they do go out into the schools and work with you to help support children in their learning and minimizing challenging behavior. If you have any questions about referring children and anything about their individual plans, they are here to help. So we have Adrian, Carolina, we have Denise, Jessica, Libby, or Elizabeth Snyder, or Libby, and Suinda. And I am just so fortunate to work with such an awesome, committed team. And I'm really looking forward to sharing them with you as we go forward in the next 4 weeks of this training. So just to get a feel for you, I'm going to do a poll. And I just want to see how many years that you've been in early childhood. So let's see if I can launch this. Here we go. Did it launch? Okay, wait a sec. Here we go. Can you guys see it? Allison,
Yes, I see it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically asking, how long have you been in early childhood? So are you brand new, 0 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, or over 10 years? I'm just curious about you guys. Okay, so most people have voted. And I'll give it another minute. Wow, okay, so we've got a lot of people over 10 years. Okay, terrific. I guess I can learn a lot from you guys. Okay, all right, good. So we've got like a nice spread. Okay, can you guys all see the polls?
No, we have to close it and then we can share it.
Okay. Okay, do you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, good. So you can see that like 71% are in the field over 10 years. Okay, good. And so we have 10% of you just started, 13% 3 to 5, and 6% 5 to 10. Okay, great. So we've got a great mix. Okay, so we're going to go on. Okay, before we actually start with the training, just want to get some of the housekeeping out of the way. So this training is actually, there are 5 weeks in this series, and each training is an hour and a half, and then we're going to give you a follow-up question or two after each week so that you can implement what you're learning in class, and then we'll review your quote homework in the beginning of the following class. So even though it's really going to be only 5 sessions for an hour and a half, including homework, if, assuming you attend all 5, you'll get a total of 10 in-service credits. So I hope that you're really smiling right now about that one. Your training certificate will be emailed to you at the end of 5 weeks at the address that you entered when you registered. So I hope that so that you know that, like if you registered under somebody else's email, they're going to be getting the certificate. In order for you to be marked as attended for today, you have to log into the computer or download the GoToWebinar app on your iPhone. So by just calling the phone number is not going to register you for attendance, and you're not going to get a certificate. So we always say if you can't see the screen, then we can't see you. Okay, so hopefully you can, if you need to take a few minutes to do that, that would be better. Also, you completed a pre-test upon registration, and then upon completion of each training, you're going to receive 5 questions, which is going to be a training survey. So that we're really hoping that you'll answer those, because it gives us really good feedback and input about our presentation. And at the end of the 5 weeks, the 5 sessions, then you're going to receive a post-test as well as a final survey. Okay? If you have any questions, feel free to ask, in the chat box or the question box. So in keeping consistent with our housekeeping and agreements, I hope all of you, I'm assuming a lot of you are familiar now with the GoToWebinar platform, and there's a question box. We sometimes say chat box, but I believe you just have the question box visible. So feel free to type your questions. I will be asking a lot of questions through this next hour and a half, and that's where you can respond to us. If you click on your handouts tab, you'll notice that there are 2 handouts. One is actually a packet of information, and they're blank forms that you'll be able to write on. And if you actually want to use them with your staff, you can as well. So you have that, and then you also have the study that was used in creating this whole Flip It and giving this Flip It training reliability. So I just wanted you to have some background information if you so desire to read it. So that's the research piece. If you want, you're welcome to click to download the attachments now, or you can wait until the end. I also just want to encourage you to bring those handouts to each of the next trainings, because I think the presenters are probably going to ask you to reflect on different things throughout the training, and you'll have it right, at your disposal. So please remember to do that. Bring those from now on. You may need more paper, maybe stickies with you to keep notes, and I think that'll be helpful. Also, we're asking you to please be patient, because the GoToWebinar platform and Zoom can be scary for us and even for you sometimes. So we want to be patient with you as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. And also, I really encourage you to participate. Just with our kids, we want them to engage in activities, not just sit back and watch. Right? The more we engage and participate, the more we learn. So I'm encouraging you to participate as much as possible, and just to be respectful of other people. People have different points of view, people have different experience, different backgrounds, different education. So we want everybody to feel comfortable. It's also totally appropriate for you to be skeptical, like, does this work? How am I going to make this happen? Is this really true? So you're welcome to feel any way you're feeling, and hopefully we can answer some of your questions. And through the weeks of this training, you'll be able to do some practicing, and we will gain some credibility through your eyes. Okay. I wanted to start you thinking with this devastating fact. A lot of you may have seen this, and it's just so heartbreaking every time I see it. So I thought it would be appropriate to sort of get in that mode about, what's happening in our preschools. What is that climate like? And Walter Gilliam, who is an incredible researcher and he's done great studies, he has found that preschool children are expelled 3 times more than children kindergarten through 2nd grade, that's 12th grade. So when you think about that, when I talk to my peers about it, my friends and people outside of education, they're like, are you kidding me? It can be very shocking that these babies, these little ones, can be expelled, asked to leave, or suspended, right, from childcare. But we all know, we're in the field, we know there are very challenging behaviors, and sometimes we really don't feel equipped to deal with them. So it's just, I don't know, it's just a sort of an upsetting fact when we see it right in front of us. So I just wanted to bring that to mind. And on that same light, I wanted to give you some statistics that Black preschool children are 3.6 times more likely to receive one or more out-of-school suspensions as white children. I'm going to let you sit with this slide for a minute because I really want you to think about it and reflect. And again, there's no blame. It's just a reflection because we want to learn, right? While all boys represent 54% of preschool enrollment, they represent 78% of preschool children receiving one or more out-of-school suspensions. Black boys represent 19% of the male preschool enrollment, but represent 45% of male preschool children receiving one or more out-of-school suspensions. What about Black girls? Black girls represent 20% of female preschool enrollment, but 54% of female preschool children receiving one or more out-of-school suspensions. So I want to put this in light because none of us in education, we are here to help children. We are here to support children. We are here to help them develop healthy skills and positive outcomes. We don't want this for our kids. None of us do. So this is a reality that we have to face. And now we are going to turn the tables and see what is our part in this, right? What can we do? So that's why you're here. You are all here, I assume, because you want to be helpful. You want to see what can we do to turn those statistics around, right? We don't want to keep seeing those. So with that, I'm going to welcome you to the Flip It strategy. And as you can see, it was developed at the Devereux Foundation. And a woman named Rachel Wagner is the one that created this Flip It strategy. And we were lucky enough to take train the trainer from her directly. And basically, it's 4 steps to help young children identify their feelings, which you may have heard about emotional literacy, right? We want to help them identify their feelings, learn healthy self-control, and reduce challenging behavior. That's our goal, and that is our goal of this training. And I think you would agree with me that it's something we all can use. I mean, we work with behavior all the time, and it was another strategy for us, and we're thrilled to, have another strategy under our belt. And we hope that you're going to feel the same way, at the end of this training. So going forward, there are 5 weeks, as you know. Today is the first day, and we're on the GoToWebinar platform. But the next 4 trainings are going to be on the Zoom platform because we have a small group, and we really wanted to make it a little bit more intimate, a little more interactive, so that we really can address your needs and we can work through some concerns that you're having, So we're going to ask you to download the Zoom app so that so that you can access this platform. I'm going to actually take your emails from today's training and create an invitation to each of you through Zoom, and then you'll be able to just click on it next week. So the next meeting is going to be Wednesday, November 4th, and everything's the same time from 1 to 2:30. And then we are going to talk about feelings. Your presenter will be Carolina White, one of our inclusion specialists. The next week, we are not going to meet the 11th of November because it's Veterans Day, but we will resume on the 18th to talk about limits with Adrienne Gilliard. Then we will meet on December 2nd about inquiries, which is Libby Snyder, another inclusion specialist. And finally, our last week will be on prompts on December 9th. Those are all going to be Zoomed on the Zoom platform. We do have 2 other inclusion specialists, Jessica and Denise. They will be providing the training in Spanish in January. Okay, so just for those of you that have friends that may want to have a training in Spanish, watch out for that. But please, I'm going to give you a minute to either mark your calendars, take a picture of this, write it down, so this way you'll have it and you can mark your calendars. Just to let you know, I will be staying on a little bit past, 2:30. So those of you that have questions or you want me to show you another slide, I'll be happy to do that. Okay. All right, so today's objectives are that you're going to be able to identify this 4-step strategy to help children identify their feelings, learn healthy self-control, and reduce challenging behavior. Again, this is an introduction, so it's just going to be like, an introduction. Talk about the ick that interferes with children being successful. And I know you don't know what ick is yet, but you will. And the third objective is that we are going to describe, you will be able to describe what children need to become resilient and why that is so important. And just to let you know that this training is really going to focus on children from 3 years old to 8 years old. Okay? So I'm just in the chat box or the question box, I'd like you to please give us your opinion. Do you think challenging behaviors have been on the rise? I've been hearing a lot from providers, and I'm just wondering what you guys think. Allison, are you seeing people's responses?
Yes, we're getting some yeses, a lot of yeses, and okay. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So it seems, pretty consistent. Yeah. I mean, because of COVID, we're sure that that's going to impact behavior. We know that it has already, but even prior to COVID, I think we've been seeing a lot of behaviors increase, especially those people that have been teaching for over 5 years. If they've been teaching more, it seems like those that have the experience have really noticed an increase in the challenging behaviors. So we are going to deal with that. And, I'm excited for you to try these strategies. Okay, so we're going to start with looking at the slide. And here it tells you the four pieces of this strategy. The F stands for feelings. The L is for limits. The I is for inquiries. And the 4 is for prompts. So there you go. That's the beginning of Flip It. And when we talk about Flip It, we're talking about changing behavior, challenging behavior, flipping behavior. And these are the 4 steps that we're going to use to make that behavior change. Okay, so we know that feelings are perfectly appropriate. Any feeling works. We do not judge a feeling. We know that they're real. We want to acknowledge feelings. So if you look at Haley here, you can see that she could be angry, right? So we want to acknowledge that her feelings, which are, Haley, you're looking so angry, right? Then we want to talk about limits. I mean, even though she's angry, she's not allowed to act on them, right? Doesn't mean you can act on your feelings. So there's where that control comes in. So we want to always talk about limits in a positive way, appropriate way. Inquiries are helping children be able to problem solve. Give them ways to problem solve. So we're going to help them inquire with open-ended questions. What do you think we can do about your mad? What can we do about your feelings? And the 4th is prompts. And sometimes they can't answer inquiries for number 3, so we go to prompts. And that's when we recommend strategies. So we may have to give our own feelings about how they can temper their feelings, which may not be appropriately acted upon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this story about Haley. Now, I don't know Haley, but Rachel, our instructor, actually gave us the story. And I want to share it with you because to me, it really frames the whole Flip It as an introduction. So you can just sit back and listen it's going to take a few minutes, but please really, really connect with what I'm saying the best you can. So when Rachel was teaching, she noticed this little girl. Her name was Haley, and she was desperate for something that would help Haley. Okay, so Haley had lived. She knew her background. She had been through a lot. She had been abused. She'd been placed in a shelter. She was expelled from several preschools. So Haley was part of the statistics for her violent behavior. And at that time, she lived in a foster home. So I think you're sort of understanding Haley a little bit by getting this background information, which is so critically important anyway, right? On a typical day at preschool, she attacked other children. She called Rachel terrible names and kicked her in the shins and told her she was fat. Haley's challenging behavior was clearly coming from a deep and emotionally hurt state. Rachel needed a strategy that wouldn't only address the behaviors, but the hurt behind them. So with guidance from the Devereux Foundation and her peers, her coworkers, her friends, her colleagues, some of them had known Haley, she worked on this Flip It approach, which was really rooted in the development of an empathetic, trusting relationship. So using that as a base, they were able to teach Haley about emotional awareness and support her development of emotional control through problem solving and healthy coping skills. So every time Haley tried to hurt someone, Rachel acknowledged Haley's feelings, and then she set a loving limit. She would say, Haley, I see you're getting mad, but we must keep each other safe. And then Rachel would inquire to encourage Haley to problem solve. And she would say something like, what can we do to help you with your mad? And we say we because this way Haley knows she's not alone. We are going to work on it together. And then Rachel would prompt her with coping strategies. Can we rub your neck? Or can we squeeze some Play-Doh? And this was the process that Rachel used. And by consistently using the feeling step, the first step, Haley began eventually to understand and identify those painful emotions that were like making her feel so upset inside and wanting to lash out. Like before, she could feel it in herself that it was stressful, right? But all she knew to do was to lash out. So now she was learning to put a name to her feelings. And just like every adult, each child has to develop his or her own unique coping strategies, right? And after some trial and error with inquiries and prompt steps, they found that foot scratching worked the best to soothe Haley. So after several months of using the 4 Flip It steps with consistency, Haley learned to identify her own emotions and would often rip off her socks and ask for a foot scratch instead of attacking the other children and the teachers. So, I mean, how incredible. And it took time for them to get to that, right? It doesn't always happen quickly. I mean, sometimes it does, especially if we get really used to the format. But this took time. And they had Haley's foster parents on board. They supported her progress, and they used Flip It at home. And later, they adopted Haley, who ended up going to kindergarten with a back scratcher for her feet. So, don't you love that story? It really takes you through each of these 4 parts of the strategy, and it's great to have in your toolbox. Flip It can be one of many strategies that you have, though. You know, conscious discipline. I'm sure there are lots of other strategies that you use, and it can be used in conjunction. So this really isn't a new strategy, but it's putting in a format that's really easy to understand and remember and take with you wherever you are. So with that story in mind, I'm going to ask you to travel to the next step. Slide with me. So just that you know that Flip It can be used to target interventions for a child displaying specific behavior problems or just everyday minor challenges, right? And, you know, based on those 4 steps, which you're going to learn in more depth, you generally want to use each of the 4 steps. You know, they can be used individually, but if you're using those 4 steps consistently, then you'll get to be very well versed with them, and that when something big happens, you'll have them. They'll be part of your routine and part of your responses to children. And so just, you know, the Flip It's common sense, as you can see. It's portable, it's effective, it's easy to remember. Flip it, right? And so I think that going forward, you're going to feel really, it gives you like the feeling of control, of empowerment that you need as a teacher or a director or a child care supporter in some way. And just to let you know, and I mentioned earlier about the Miami University study that was done. Miami University is a research university in Ohio, and it was done in 2016 with trained caregivers. And basically, they found that long-term usage of Flip It decreased negative outcomes and increased positive outcomes, but after only 1 day of training. So given your next 4 weeks, a total of 5 weeks, is the same thing as taking a 1-day training. So you are going to be equipped after the 5 weeks to use a strategy and see positive outcomes really right away. I do want to acknowledge that for some children it does take longer, but I think you're going to see enough positive changes very, very, very quickly. So it's going to give you the confidence to continue doing it, and you're going to see the results. It also found that child protective factors like attachment increased steadily and behavior problems decreased steadily across 6 months. It showed that caregiver-child relationships steadily improved over 6 months. It also showed that 100% of participants reported positive outcomes, right? So I think you really want to focus on that. And 92% reported that Flip It was a natural fit with their personal caregiving style and other strategies. So, you know what, sometimes when we go into the classrooms, we worry because, you know, we know that you have a lot of people trying to give you support from the community, and we want to make sure that you know that these strategies are consistent with other strategies that you'll be getting. This is a social emotional basis, this strategy. So anything that has social emotional development in mind, you can be pretty sure that it's going to be consistent with this strategy. So now we have our 4 Flip It steps in a little tiny bit more detail, so that you're a little bit more clear. And although we haven't done this before on this platform, I'm going to brave it, and I'm going to ask you to write in the chat if you'd like to read for us. So who would like to write in the question box your name, and we'd love to have you read the feeling step. Allison, can you let us know who responds?
Yep, I'm waiting.
Do we have any brave souls?
If not, I'll do it, but let's see.
Okay.
I think everyone's being a little shy today.
Okay. Well, I thought I would try it out on you, but okay, we'll do Allison. Okay.
I thought that was great, but okay, I'll go for it. I guess no one's sick of hearing my voice, but okay. So feelings. Gently talk with children about their feelings and what you are seeing and hearing as a result of their emotions. Help children identify the root feeling causing the behavior. Go more?
Yeah, go ahead. That's as long as you're the only one.
I feel like I'm in school. Teacher, go more. Limits. Remind children of the positive limits and expectations you have for their behavior. Loving and simple limits help surround children with a sense of consistency, safety, and trust. Inquiries. Encourage children to think about solutions to their challenges. Ask questions that promote problem solving and healthy coping skills. Inquiries invite children to think, learn, and gain self-control. Finally, prompts. Provide creative cues, clues, and suggestions for children having difficulty problem solving. Enthusiastic, bright ideas can lead the way to better problem solving skills.
Right. So you can see that Flip It helps children become more aware of his feelings, his or her feelings, right, her emotions, and then to start implementing coping strategies. That's the key, right? We know that our kids don't have a lot of self-control, and sometimes they can't think of their own strategies, and sometimes they can. They're very capable. We have to know that kids are capable when we ask them questions, right? So that's going to help them try to problem solve, figure out what their issues are, and having these strategies of learning to problem solve for ourselves, for themselves, that's a lifelong skill, right? We as adults know how to problem solve, right? Look how we use it every single day, multiple times a day. We're constantly having problems and having situations come up, and we're having to think of solutions. We want to get children in that mode as well. So that's why we say this can last a lifetime. So each time a child, there's a situation, you can use this Flip It strategy. The length of time will vary. Some children, you can go through all 3 steps in 5 minutes. Some children, it'll take you a little bit longer. But we want to be consistent, and we want to just be predictable to them so they get used to the strategies as well. So we want to start using the 4 strategies as you learn them. And sometimes you might want to only do one strategy, you know. So I like the feeling set strategy to start anyway, because sometimes when you just acknowledge somebody's feelings right then and there, it diffuses the situation. And then they're like, wow, she understands me. And that puts you on an even more even playing field. So, okay, next one is that children who are frequently flipped become emotionally aware problem solvers, which is just what we said, who develop healthy coping skills that will last a lifetime. So I just want you to think back, like think of those of you that are in the classroom, think about like this past week. Think about like a problem that arose in your classroom. Did somebody spill something? You know, not big, you know, these are very manageable, typical problem things that come up in preschool. Did somebody take somebody else's toy? Think about like a situation that came up in your preschool. And what I'd like you to write in the chat box is, who solved the problem? Who is the one that solved the problem? And write that person there. And you have to know names, but you can write, was it the teacher? Was it the child? Was it a parent? Was it, you know, and teachers and assistants are all, we're going to all call them the same as caregivers or teachers, because from a child's perspective, everybody is. So, Allison, are you seeing anything? Who solved a problem? I'm not even asking you for the problem right now, but who was the person that solved it?
I'm seeing a lot, the teacher, parents, and the school together. Yay, Viv. Teacher.
Okay, so that tells us something, right? So that we become the problem solvers. So then we have to ask ourselves, how are our kids going to become problem solvers and think on their own if we don't give them the opportunity? And that's not to say you didn't give them, maybe you did give the opportunity, but you know, maybe it ended up with you solving the problem, which is fine. This is just an awareness of letting us think back about who is actually solving these problems, and let's give our kids the opportunity. And that's where open-ended questions come into being. And again, we will talk about this a little bit later, but much more in the next few weeks. So, Flip It is not the only strategy that you can use. It can be combined with others, but it's not magic. So I do want to say that a lot of times my inclusion staff and I are called into childcare centers and family childcare homes because a child is at risk of being suspended or expelled. But these things do take time. So I do want to take a moment now just to encourage you that when you do see challenging behaviors arising, and we can always help you with this Flip It strategy in addition to any other one, to please get in touch with us in the beginning if you can, because it does take time to change behavior, and we really want, our goal is to have those kids stay in the classroom, stay at your school, right? And learn the strategies that they need to be successful, because it's up to us as teachers to provide, to teach them, right? Provide opportunities to teach them and to practice so they get good to be and problem solve their own problems that arise. Okay. Now, in order for Flip It to work, there are 3 prerequisites. One is relationships, one is empathy, and one is ick. Okay, so we're going to talk about each one, and I want to just set the stage for the first one, relationships. We know that, look at the faces of these adults in these rooms. What word comes to mind? Maybe in the chat box you can write, what kind of vibe are you getting from these adults or teachers?
Happy, a few happies. They're working together. They're happy. Maybe a child using their words. Engaged.
Right. So they're connecting. They're smiling. They're looking at the children, right? You can see that connection. They are being attuned to those children, right? And let's look at this quote. And then really, if we can really walk away and remember this quote, I think it's just a great default. Every child needs one person who is irrationally crazy about him or her.
And Deb, from this picture, it looks to me like they're tuning in and then they're able to talk more and take turns. Our 3 teams.
That's right. Of course, Allison is giving her plug for the 3 T's. And if for those of you that may have heard about it before, if you haven't, go onto our website, elcbroward.org, because it does give you some it really gives you the website and some strategies about the 3 T's, which is, first T is tune in. You can see those teachers looking at those kids, like we just said, right? That's tuning in. And we don't see their mouths moving, but you can see they're communicating. One's doing something, another one's doing it. It's continuing, right? We always want to add words, talk more, right? Tune in and then take turns is the last T. Take turns, which means it's reciprocal. We always want to add words to our actions and to children's actions. And there we go. We've got the 3 T's, which encourages vocabulary development, language development, emotional skills. So it's all good. So thank you, Allison. Anyway, so here's the quote that I'm hoping that you can go away with. Every child needs one person who is irrationally crazy about them. And why is that? Because that helps you develop relationships with your child, right? Look at the bottom of this pyramid. But relationships are the prerequisite, are the foundation of the Flip It strategy or any strategy. So I cannot say this enough. I don't want you to tune me out, so I'm not going to say it too much. But just remember this slide and that every strategy is only as good as the relationship that it's built upon or built on. Okay? And if you think about any strategy you may have used, like in the past, really every strategy starts with relationships. You guys are doing class, right? Class is all about relationships. So we always want to try to start building relationships. So, I mean, the real question is, how do we build relationships? And I think, you know, the answer very simply is to really be attuned to your child, the children, play with the children, follow their lead. If I'm 3 and I'm building something and my teacher comes up to me and starts to want to build with me, I'm like, wow, she wants to play with me. She likes what I'm doing. This is fun. And then we have our conversation, and then we learn trust. We feel safe with that person, right? So playing with a child, talking to the child, following their lead is a great way to start that development of relationships. So we learn best from people who make us feel safe, valued, and understood. Just that's our mantra, right? So we want to always use Flip It in the context of those relationships. I don't know, I guess we're going to read the slide just to reiterate that children learn best from people who make us feel safe, valued, and understood. For a child, Flip It is the process of learning about feelings and healthy coping skills. And this learning must be facilitated by a safe adult. So you're on. Now I want you to think of a safe person, okay? Think of somebody that makes you feel safe. And in the question box, what does that person do to make you feel safe? Can you write down those qualities? We don't need, if you want to write down the person, if it's a parent or a friend or a spouse or significant other or somebody, the important part I'm asking you to write in the question box is, what does that person do? What do they do to help make you feel safe?
We have a few coming in. One is comforting me, listening to me, support me, feeling protected, hugs, listening.
Okay, so there are feelings of empathy. People could feel you, right? There are feelings of empathy, right? People are listening to you, right? All of these things empower us. When we have that safety person with us, or giving us support, we feel so much better. And very often, the things that make us feel safe are the same exact things that children need from us. So you want people to listen to you, kids want us to listen to them. We want people to be empathetic, children want us to be empathetic, right? So I think this is a great rule of thumb. So let's keep this in mind, that when our kids act out, like they don't know what to do with those feelings yet, but they need somebody to be with them, to help them feel safe, help them feel secure, to walk in their shoes a little bit, right? So remember, playing is a great way to develop that relationship. And sometimes it's very hard with a child with challenging behavior to develop those relationships because they push us away, or we're not feeling so great about that child, right? Which is another thing we're going to talk about in a minute. But keep in mind that they need just what we need to feel safe, in control, empowered. So the one thing they need to feel is empathy. Empathy is the ability to see and feel from another person's perspective. And not everybody can do that. Not everybody can do that, but it's really a critically important skill because really relationships are built on feeling that other people get us, right? That what I feel matters and they understand me. So empathy is really an important quality that we want to instill in our children. And showing empathy to a child is the first step in teaching a child to have empathy for others. So it's very important for us to be able to show empathy in the classroom, to model empathy so that they can develop it themselves. So we are going to watch a 2-minute video. And let's assume that I can do this. Here we go. Please bear with me. Here we go.
It didn't launch yet. You good?
It didn't launch yet.
No, do you want me to try to do it?
Okay. Can everybody see the full slide? We back?
Well, now we see only you.
Oh, that's not good.
Why? You look, there we go. Now
Good?
it's coming back. That was
Okay.
some video.
Wasn't that a great video? Okay, so
Mhm.
just to give you a little pre-story is that this child has had challenging behaviors for this teacher for a while. So just to give you some input like from the teacher. So what do you think about this video? How would you describe Joshua's relationship with the teacher? Can you write in the chat box, question box?
Someone shared, I want to hug him every time I see this video.
Oh,
Someone else wrote that there's not a connection there. Not much empathy from the teacher. It was rough.
Right?
No relationship with the teacher at all.
Hmm.
A wow, which I agree with. The teacher dismissed his feelings and there was no communication at all.
Okay, right, exactly right. Okay, I just want to move myself because I see myself in front of the questions. I didn't want to. Do you see me moving my screen or no? I don't know. Okay.
You'll see the video clip, Peach's tantrum. So
All right. So
now
did this teacher show empathy? I think we can all agree that the teacher did not show empathy, right? Okay. What was preventing her from showing empathy? Any ideas about that you can write in the chat box? What was preventing her from showing empathy? What do you think?
she was annoyed. She probably labeled him already.
Exactly. And that happens, right? We're human. That happens.
And there's been previous negative interactions with him before.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So from the teacher's perspective, it was another challenging behavior, right? And she probably could anticipate that he was going to have a tantrum, throw toys, because it probably happened before. I mean, we're making that assumption because we do know that he has had challenging behavior before. And so maybe that's changing her mindset about him, just like you're saying, right? Preconceived notions. So it's actually almost, it's like an implicit bias, isn't it? Towards a child. So just to assume something's going to happen when it's actually not, we don't know if it would happen. If we had a different attitude about the child, right? If we had a different outlook or belief system about how to handle challenging behavior and understand that the relationships and empathy is so important, right? If she's not showing him empathy, how can we expect him to show her empathy when she says, you know, you hurt me, Joshua, right? He's not going to feel empathy because he's not given any empathy for what he does or acknowledgement of his feelings. So does her attempt to get empathy from Joshua work? Like we just said, right? It's not going to work because he hasn't received the feeling of empathy himself. Now, my question is, what could have happened to make this a better interaction? Any ideas? Thinking about the video, were there anything that they could have done, that she could have done or agreed to do before it escalated proactively?
She could have validated, oh no. Waiting for the stuff to come in.
Okay.
She could have communicated with him more. She could have been prepared if there was going to be an issue with a toy or something like that. Maybe have an extra person in there. Teacher can also talk to him at eye level, ask simple questions, try to get the root of it.
Okay. Think about what happened with the peaches. The peaches fell on the floor, right?
Just find out if the peach was salvageable, help him get another snack, validate his emotions.
Good, 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 good. Those are all great options. And if you remember, and you might not have, because I know you just saw this once, sometimes we miss some things, you know, but if you would have watched it again, you would have seen, or if you might remember, that when the peaches fell, there was still one lone peach that was still in the bowl. So one had fallen out, but one was still in the bowl. So she probably could have salvaged that piece, the peach, right? And given it to the child, to Josh. And maybe, and that I'm sure that could have made him feel better, right? That's one thing that she also could have done. And if they don't, I'm not sure if you heard, but there was a child that actually wanted a banana. So really, she could have taken her peaches and maybe given them to him and gotten her a banana. If that would have happened proactively, it could have avoided the whole escalation, right? So just something to think about and to sort of like review and reflect upon to see how can something be different. And this is something that we need to think about also, because sometimes our default, we're wired for our default to be no or stop or, you know, like that kind of a lot of negativity. And that's okay as long as we acknowledge it and we know intentionally we have to turn things around to put it in a little bit more of a positive sense and positive tone, because it's received so much better that way. Okay, so the other piece with this teacher is that she was getting more agitated, right? So how can you help somebody if you're getting more agitated? So it's another piece of it is we have to think about our own emotional state when we're, you know, with these children that challenge us. So for kids, peaches are a big deal, right? For Joshua, it certainly was. But remember, not only are relationships the base, you know, to be able to flip it, the base of the pyramid, the foundation, but empathy is also. Empathy is the ability to honor a child-sized problem, and I love that. Isn't that great? Empathy is the ability to honor a child-sized problem. We have problems, we think our problems are big, and a lot of them are, especially with what's going on now with COVID. So many things and factors and stresses in our lives, traumas in our life, right? And we do have big things. But to that 3-year-old, peaches was really, really important to him too. So we always want to honor a child-sized problem. Now, like this teacher, we have to make sure that if we are escalating, if our bodies, if our hearts are beating really fast, we know something's going on with us. We really are not, we may not be best equipped to handle a child's behaviors unless we flip ourselves. So like we always want to do, we always want to reflect, think about ourselves. How are we feeling? Validate our feelings. We have to do the same 4 steps that we're learning now to do with children on ourselves first, so that we can best be calm and be that safe harbor for our children. So again, feelings, we have to think about what's happening inside of us, right? How am I feeling? And explore our feelings. Limits, decide on the appropriate boundaries or limits for the situation for ourselves. We have to reflect on ourselves and then go to inquiries. What is the best way to handle this? My emotions are real, but what's the best way that I can problem solve my problems right now? And prompts, use creative thinking if you have difficulty finding a solution. You can ask a friend or a colleague. And honestly, the inclusion team is here to help you with that. So, and I'm going to give you my contact information at the end of today, the next half an hour. So you'll have my number at least, and I can support you and have my team support you. Because sometimes we need help finding solutions, and there's no shame in that. It doesn't mean that you're not a good teacher, that you're not working as hard as you can. We all need to bounce ideas off each other. We do it all the time, and it's healthy. It's healthy because we don't know have all the answers. And I'm going to share with you an example of what happened to me. It's not a great example. I mean, I think it's a good example because it's not a terrible thing that I had a problem solve. You know, it wasn't that intense, but I was just thinking about what can I share with you. And I was thinking, and I'm very, very fortunate that even in the time of COVID, that I do have my family come. As you know, said, I have like 4 babies within 40 minutes of me, and they come every weekend with their families, with the dogs and the parents, and it's incredibly wonderful. I know I'm very blessed. But I will say that I hesitate to share it because I do realize that I'm very lucky to have them in my life where many people don't have them at this time. But just to go through the flip it strategy, I realized I was feeling very stressed because they come on 1 day a week and they come the break of dawn and they stay all the way to like 8, 9 o'clock at night until the kids have to go to bed, because it is so helpful for them to have my husband and me to help support them and give them some free time, as you might remember if you have children or if you have young children. And so, but I would find I was very stressed because it was like, what are we going to have to eat for lunch? And, what am I going to have? And what am I going to do for snack? And then what do I have to do for dinner? And there are 12 of us, right? So that's a lot of planning. And I found like as I was doing it, and I was happy to do it, I wasn't spending time with my kids when they were coming to visit. I was spending all my energy on other things, which were important also. So I'm like, okay, I'm feeling anxious about this. I'm struggling because I really should be so happy they're here. And I am happy they're here, but I have to get this food thing under control, right? And I said to myself, my limit is that I have to provide the foods. I have to provide food, somehow. let me think how I can do this in a way that works for myself so I get to spend more time with my kids, my grandchildren, and enjoy each other. And so I said to myself, they help me cook, they help me prepare, and that's all wonderful, but it still wasn't enough. And finally, I decided, oh, when they're here, I'm just going to order out. And so even though that might not work for some families, you might not feel the way I'm feeling, and which is totally fine. But for me, that was something I was feeling. And you know what? It worked great. I was able to, buy prepared foods, at the grocery store and just heat them up, put them in the microwave, order in something to make my life a little bit easier because my goal was to spend the time with my grandchildren, you know? So I share that with you, and I hope you, understand, why I brought it into this particular part of the training. So going forward,
We support you on so many levels of that example. I agree with you, and you need to order out because as someone that hates cooking, I was like, and I know you cook so much and so well for your family and they appreciate it, but you deserve to spend that time with them. So I'm glad you flipped the switch on that one.
Well, thank you. And thank you for validating because, I actually was, I do want to acknowledge that I'm lucky to have them. And a lot of you out there probably don't see your families. So, you might not be able to connect with that. And of course, that's 100% valid. And not that I'm judging it, but I just want to acknowledge it. So thank you. So empathy is becoming aware of your feelings and knowing your limits and using healthy coping skills to solve problems, and that this will help children work on their journey, work on their relationships. You work on your relationships, and it really helps forever. And when children feel honored, about the little things, they will be able to apply it to big things in their life. And we also have to appreciate where they are, and then really it just helps build those really important relationships. So right now, I want you to reflect on a child that you're eager to flip. Okay, so let's think about that. I'm gonna give you a minute. Okay, and then think about, just think about your experience with that child. Think about what you know about that child. And just to give you an FYI, as this third bullet says, the more that we more observe our children. Observing means standing, watching, looking, just getting to understand our kids, the more that we're going to understand and be able to empathize, to take their perspective. Okay? So as you're reflecting on a child, I'd like you, if in your handout, if you have a handout, it's on page 5. And if you want to look at it through that, you can. If you want to just look at the screen, it's all the same. So think about a child, and in the question box or on your sheet, well, I'd rather do it in the question box, this way we can talk about it a little bit. Take a moment and reflect about that child's strengths. And that will be the first circle on the top if you want to use your handout. But to also, in the question box, please say, what are the strengths of that child? This child can be one of your own children. It can be a child in your class now. It can be a child that you had last year. It can be any child that you come in contact with. Again, what are the strengths of that child? Okay, Allison, anything coming up?
The strengths of the child, they're good at building. They can write their name.
Good.
They are caring. They're helpful sometimes. They can use their words.
Good. Is it hard to think about the strengths of the child? Let's think about that. What else are we finding? Anybody have the kids have a good sense of humor, loving?
Sometimes helps others, but sometimes create colors for me sometimes. Hugs sometimes.
Good. Okay, hugs. Even though it's sometimes we know that he or she can, right? And they do. So, okay, so the following directions: help clean, give hugs, have some skills. Okay, so I know sometimes it's hard to really think about a child's strength, especially if we think that child's a biter. And all you think about, he's the biter, he's the biter. But really, he's got lots of other qualities too. We don't want to just peg him from, with one characteristic. And to think about, do we do that? And if we do, we really want to try to really push ourselves to observe him and think about, look, really acknowledge all the things that child does that's appropriate. And then now I want you in the chat box to write down the child's interests. What did that child like? And if there's more than one thing the child likes, let us know.
Child likes superheroes, sports.
Okay.
Always brings a car with him to school.
Okay.
Likes to draw.
Good.
Likes to snack. Likes to read.
Good. Okay.
Play in the housekeeping area.
So that's a lot. I'm sorry.
Princesses. I guess Disney princesses-ish, I guess.
So those things are really giving you a great information about what they like to do and a possible way to connect with that child. If they love to be Disney princesses and they're dressing up, well, go ahead in there and dress up right with them. Play along with them, even if you don't put the clothes on. Pretend right along with them. If they like to do superheroes, I know some people don't like to zero in on that, but if there's a healthy way to bring in superheroes, that would be appropriate as well, right? So that's really why I wanted you to think about their interests and think about the positive aspects of them, because they also have them, right? So we want to appreciate these about the kids. And the interests are critical. Whenever there's a challenging behavior, the first thing we say is, we want to know what happened beforehand to maybe set the stage for a challenging behavior, but then we always want to say, what is that child interested in? Because it allows us to work through some issues using our interests first. First of all, use interest to develop that relationship and play with that child, right? Make those connections. And then sometimes we can even teach skills when we're engaged in their interests. So finding a child's interest is really, really critically important. And we do that best by engaging with them, observing them, getting information from families sometimes, because they can verbalize. Sometimes they're going to have behaviors that you might not even know. They may be shy, they may not want to engage. So sometimes we need to ask families about their interests if we don't know, right? And lastly, what are the challenging behaviors that we see? Let's do those. I think those are going to be a little bit easier.
Hitting, throwing, crying, biting,
right,
pushing.
Okay, so these behaviors are the behaviors we want to flip, right? We all agree those are not appropriate behaviors. They happen, we know they do. It's part of development. When kids don't know how to problem solve or label their feelings or use their words, it's going to happen. So what we want to do is we want to flip it. And when we know the child's strengths, not only does that help us develop a relationship, but it also enables us to think about prompting we can use. If we knew that Haley liked her feet scratched or massaged, right? If we happen to have known that, if the parent might have or a family member might have shared that, that could have been our first prompt, right? We would have known, we could have known it. We might not have in Haley's sense or in case or in another one, but when we know what a child's interest is, we can also put that in our bank to think about our toolbox when we're trying to come up with a good prompt. So when we're flipping behavior. So I'm glad that we were able to really look at the child, and I encourage you to do that even more. Think about that child's appropriate behavior, interests, and the challenges, challenging behavior, because those are the ones we want to change. Okay, thank you guys. Okay, so where do these behaviors come from? Okay, did you ever feel icky? That says it all, doesn't it? Look at this picture, right? Where do these challenging behaviors come from? So children are challenging when they are weighted down by something called ick. And think about how you feel sometimes. You don't feel so good for whatever reason, right? We feel icky. Well, kids feel icky. And they're weighted down by that ick, and that prohibits them from going forward. So let's find out a little bit more about what ick is. So what is ick? It refers to the negativity or risk factors in the child's life that weighs them down. Some handle their ick better than others, but everybody has it. You know, everybody's got negativity in their life, you know? So we want to try to pay attention to the ick in children's lives so we can better get to the root of the challenging behavior. Ick includes the factors, like 3 types of factors. One is the ick within ourselves. One is ick, the second one is ick in our families. The third is ick in our environment. So it's icky stuff in all of those 3 areas that make us feel bad and not able to handle our challenges. So like even when we think about COVID, right? We may have had challenges before, but COVID magnified our ick, right? It magnified everything. And it was maybe tolerable stress before, and they might have made it into more of a toxic stress. So everybody's got ick. And it comes from sometimes just within ourselves. Sometimes it comes within our families, what's happening with our families, and sometimes it's from our environment. So just to explore ick a little bit more, we can think about the ick that children face. What kind of ick do you think is in children's lives, what in themselves? Can you feel like what might be in a child's self that might make him feel yucky?
Jealousy.
Okay, good. That emotion can get in the way, right?
Being hungry.
Yep. Kids come to school hungry.
Something
Okay.
happening with the parents, like yelling and fighting.
Okay.
Not getting enough attention.
Right, so they're feeling badly, like just within themselves, right? They're tired, they may be anxious about something, like if their lives are not, are not consistent, they may have big worries, right, in themselves. And the family, like what kind of things happen in the family that creates a lot of that yucky feeling with kids? Can you think of anything? What happens in a family that creates stress for children and just sadness or different kinds of feelings that may interfere with them being successful?
Divorce.
Yep.
Insecurities.
Yep.
Moving.
Yep.
COVID.
Yep, for sure.
Parents
Okay,
fighting.
I'm sorry, parents what?
Fighting.
Parents fighting, for sure.
In the house, like 2 houses, losing a family member.
Absolutely, of course, right? So these are very weird feelings that children are having as a result of family, right? Things happen in the family, which happens, right? It happens to everybody. I mean, it happens in families. And oops. And finally, the last one, environmental ick. Can things be happening in the environment that creates that yucky feeling?
COVID.
COVID, right?
A hurricane.
Natural disasters for sure.
Unemployment,
Okay.
changes in the school, can't go to school anymore.
Right. Or like you said, changes of school. So let's think about our kids when they have to go from preschool to preschool and they have to learn about a new environment all over again, a new personality and a teacher, new everything, right? Absolutely. Thank you. Those are great ones. So all of those things affect our kids, right? When they're coming to school. So we want to try to be conscious of this. And here's one of my favorite, even though very upsetting, cartoons. And if you look at it, it says, could someone help me with these? I'm late for math class. And here's this poor child that's trying to get into class, but is weighed down by all this ick. Homelessness, hunger, sickness in the family, things that we can identify with in our lives and our children's lives, right? That's the ick for that child. And it's in more than one area, isn't it? Their hunger, their sickness, it could be their own sickness inside themselves, a homelessness, a family homelessness, right? So a child can have more than one type of ick in his or her life, which of course compounds it. So we want to just be conscious of that and to know that children haven't changed, but childhood has. The experiences that they're having has. Children are the same wherever they live, wherever you go in the world, right? They're curious, they're interested, they're wired to be social typically, right? But our childhood has changed for kids. So they're having to adapt. And the question is, do they have to adapt to us or do we have to adapt to them? So just let's keep in mind how we said earlier to follow their lead, see how they're functioning, what their needs are, be empathetic towards them. Because when kids have ick, they can act in one of two ways. They can either flip in or they can flip out, right? So flipping in happens when the feelings stay inside and they're not expressed. Flipping out happens when the negative behaviors come out. And I think a lot of us are aware of like you mentioned, the challenging behaviors before, they were all acting out behaviors, flipping out behaviors, right? Throwing toys, hitting, anger, running away, hurting people, right? Yelling. Those are challenging, just like the flipping in is. Children that are hiding in a corner, under a table, not talking, not engaging, very quiet. Those are equally challenging. And when there's a lot of ick in somebody's life, they can go either way because they don't have the coping skills yet. They're looking to us to help them. And we need to do that. So everybody has ick. It doesn't mean anybody's sick. It just means we have to acknowledge it. And let's try to go through our 4 stages so that we can help them and help them problem solve. And we do that by helping children become resilient. And that's on page 7 in your handout. I don't know if any of you have downloaded it or have it on another screen and would like to look at it. And resilience is the ability to bounce back from difficulty, bounce back from misfortune, or just to change and to change that ick. The Flip It strategy helps children become resilient by teaching them how to cope when they're feeling challenged, when in that challenging situation. And they can do that when they have things in place. For example, when they have these 3 critical protective factors, they can overcome that ick. First is if they have developed attachment, like we said before, the bottom of the pyramid, relationships. The child's ability to promote and maintain mutual positive connections with other children and significant adults. So if they're able to do that, and you give them the opportunity to develop those relationships with you, that will create that foundation to flip. Initiative, the child's ability to use independent thought and action to meet his or her needs. So if the child can think about what he or she needs and do it, of course, that will also help them reverse their state of being in that stress. And the third is self-regulation, that the child's ability to respond to many different emotions using words and actions that are appropriate for the different situations that he or she encounters. So that's the key. And we know that really up till about age 3 or 4, children typically don't have those self-regulation skills. They do develop it certain self-regulation, but really what we're talking about today, they really do usually need a lot of support. And to be resilient and successful in school, children have to have all three of these healthy protective factors. So we're hoping that this flip it strategy, we know that it does help, will help them flip it and become resilient. And then you need to think about yourself. Teachers also experience ick, all three of the same ones: environmental, family, and the ick within ourselves, and our feelings of how we see ourselves could be our own ick sometimes. If we don't feel good enough, if we don't feel valued, you know, if I don't feel like I have something smart to say, I might not want to say anything. And maybe it's because people made me feel that way, right? So we carry our own ick. And we have to really be good to ourselves and allow us the time to acknowledge our own ick and then try to deal with it through the flip it strategies. How can I deal with it? What do I need to do? Do I need help for somebody to help me get through my ick? Because it makes us healthier, better problem solvers, more successful, and it also helps us help our children with their challenges as well. I mean, if you wanted to, you can reflect on this as well in your handouts. And you know, sometimes writing is a great strategy that if you do answer these questions or use it with your team at work, it will help you acknowledge really how you're feeling. So we really need you to think of your strategies that can help you through these difficult situations. A lot of us breathe, right? We run, people pray, people talk to a friend. It's important to think about how we cope, how we can try to calm. What are the strategies that we use? Indulge yourselves. Okay, this is the picture of that handout if you wanted to use it or share it. So when times are full of ick, we have a choice to stay calm and flip it rather than us flipping out or us that we flip in. Okay, we have that choice. We have to make that choice too, and we have to learn to be calm so that we can make a good choice, just like kids. So that pretty much concludes our training for today. And for the next 4 weeks, we're going to delve into each of those other 4 components of Flip It. Next week, we're going to meet with Carolina White. So watch for the Zoom invite. And what I'd like you to do for homework is just to think about it a way that you help the child cope with your guidance this week. Okay? So when a child is having a tough time, like little Joshua with the peaches, what can you do to help them get out of that ick, get out of that situation before it escalates as it did with Joshua? Okay, so if you want to write that down, that would be great, because then we're going to start next Wednesday's class after our welcome. We're going to actually go into breakout rooms and talk about how you were able to help a child cope. And use your own strategies. Don't worry about using the Flip It so much. I mean, you have your handout, so you can refer to the Flip It strategies if you feel comfortable using them now, knowing that we haven't really gotten into the dirty details yet. But let's just think of a way you help the child cope with their ick this week. And then just to give you my contact information, my name is Debbie Kay, and here's my contact information. And just a reminder that we will meet next week, November 4th at 1 o'clock, to watch for the Zoom invitation and to bring your handouts with you, and remember to help a child cope and come with, if you want to write it up, you can. If you want to just come with that in your mind to share, that would be great. So I'm asking if there are any questions. We have a couple of minutes before we say goodbye to you. And again, like I said before, I'll stay on for a little bit longer if you like, to download the handouts and to ask any questions now. So is there something, and you know what, I think you can unmute yourself. Allison, I guess we can unmute everybody if somebody wants to ask.
No, everyone is muted.
Okay, so just ask in the chat box then maybe.
Yeah, I think it's better. Otherwise, we have multiple people.
Okay. So feel free to ask your
Can
questions.
you, please- Deb, can you put the dates back up again, please? From that
Yeah.
previous slide?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
we're
guess.
going to send the Zoom links after today's webinar.
Okay. And so just to remember that we asked you to commit to these 5 weeks because you really, in order to really make a change, we really want you to have that comprehensive feeling that you can do this, you know? And sometimes after one training, we think like, oh, great, I have the tools, I can do it. But really, we need practice so that we can really feel good about ourselves in the delivery, you know?
Deb, for the homework, are they going to send it by email or just hold it to bring to the following training?
Yeah, you can just bring it with you to the following. We're just going to set it, we're going to just be able to go in small little groups and share how you help the child cope next week when we start the beginning of our training at 1 o'clock. When I email you the link, I'll write it also in the email, in the body of the email to remind you about the homework, okay?
We don't need your email addresses because we have them from whatever you use to register for this event.
Yes.
Because again, this training it's done on a smaller scale. And it's going to be done next week on Zoom so we can have that kind of interaction and conversation. Because again, we're here to provide you the information, but we also want you to look to each other to help you. You are all the experts. We're the experts, but you guys are in the field right now. So we want to work together. Shh. Sorry, children.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I was just going to say thank you to everybody that joined in today and put this time aside and made us the priority. And I'm hoping that you got, you received like a good introduction to the Flip It strategy. And we're looking forward to seeing you next week. So if you need to leave, feel free. And otherwise, those of you that want to stay, feel free to stay. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
You said you were muted then.
Shh. Great job, Debbie. Great, Debbie. Great job, Debbie. Thank you. Deb, you did an amazing job. You truly did. It was great.
Oh, thanks. I love this topic, and I'm so excited about the strategy. Okay, any other questions, Al?
No, nothing. I think we can shut down now.
Okay, looks like there's still a lot of people on though, so
I think they're downloading.
maybe, I don't know.
All right. I'm going to run to you know where.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Everybody that's still on, thanks to Allison. Forgot to thank you.
When you get a chance, okay?
Thank you, yeah. Okay, I'm going to shut down. Just let me know if you need me to stay on any longer. Okay. Okay, those of you that are still on, thank you guys for attending. We will see you next week.